Hey everybody, how about this weather in Maine? Isn't it nice? That's why we're all so strong. My name is Ted Reed, and I am one of the members of the Maine Cystic Fibrosis Family Advisory Board. I'm a parent of a beautiful 17-year-old daughter with cystic fibrosis named who is, excuse my French, a hot shit kid. And luckily is doing fairly well. She's a junior in high school. She has her first boyfriend. He has his first hickeys. She's going to take her driver's exam on the 12th of May, and she's pretty excited, and we're pretty scared. And she's starting to look at colleges. So, you know, we all have, many of us, most of us, if not all of us, have some sort of connection to cystic fibrosis. So that's mine. We're so pleased that you could make it up to Augusta or down to Augusta, depending on where you started. We've been having these education days typically in the Portland area, and we worry a lot about trying to represent and cover the state of Maine when we're being maybe a little bit too southern-centric. And so we're testing a little bit further north here in Augusta this year. So as a component of your feedback, we'd love to hear whether that helped or hindered you or others you know in your community who might have wanted to be here, or those of you who've come. We have a really good day, I think, scheduled here. And I'm just going to give you a high-level sense for it really quickly. In a minute, I'm going to ask Anna Karns to come up, and she'll do some introductory remarks as she has every year, and she will then introduce the new guy. And we have a few new people in the clinics that we experienced down here in Portland, but one of the new guys is Colby Wyatt, who actually grew up in Maine, I think, right? Yeah, and he went to Colby College, but then he got smart and he went to Dartmouth and some other places, and he is going to talk to us about some of the data and information behind all the bullshit we're asked to do to stay healthy as people with CF. So this should be very enlightening, I think, and helpful in terms of understanding why we do the things we need to do. And then we're really, really excited and pleased that we've been able to get Ronnie Sharp up here. Ronnie lives in Phoenix, Arizona, so that's part of what we do as a group, a committee, is figure out how to get people up here and how to fund that and all. And I'm not going to tell you too much about Ronnie. He will tell you a lot about himself, but I think it will be very useful and I venture to say inspiring to hear his orientation to life and living with CF, and I have heard him speak once before, and it affected how I think about things. So I'll just leave it at that. And then, as usual, we have all sorts of breakout sessions that you'll be allowed to go towards something that is most of interest to you. There'll be 2 rounds of those in the after lunch. As always, there's some food, so I'm not exactly sure how lunch is going to work. I think it's a buffet that will probably be set up back, and that'll be around noon. We have sort of a ragged edge to the end of Ronnie's talk. If it's really percolating, we may go a little longer, so just tolerate that. Don't get too stuck on the agenda times. The main thing is to get the messages and the communication and the exchange out of this. A couple of housekeeping things. Okay, it's raining out really hard, so we're probably not going to have a fire. But if we do have a fire, you would get out by going through that exit sign back there and out and straight out the backyard, or through this exit sign and out into the front, but bring your umbrella. There are bathrooms, if you haven't found them, through this door. There's a single that's really cool that I found earlier. If you go up here and take a left, and you're not quite at the reception, on the left, it's a single restroom, lock the door, it's all yours, but the walls are painted, hand-painted in blue Delft, and it's really a nifty bathroom, so go check that one out. I can't not bring this up, but in your packets that you got, if you didn't get a packet, shame on you, go get one before you leave. but the packets are up at the entrance level. And the second page is a feedback form, and it's two-sided. And I just want to bring your attention to it now, and I'll probably do that 2 more times, a little obnoxiously. But we really, really rely on the information that you give us to figure out what to put in as content to these sessions. So we're very, very interested in your feedback, and these sessions will be best if you talk to us through that method. A little bit about the Family Advisory Board, the folks that pull this together. This is a completely volunteer group of people. We don't have governance or hierarchies or a president or anything like that. We basically have a purpose and mission to, bottom line, support and advance the outcomes for cystic fibrosis for people with CF in the state of Maine. And we do that in a whole bunch of different ways. One way is to try to elevate the awareness and the education around this I guess you call it a disease. We don't call it a disease at our house. It's like just something you have. Like, I'm balding, I have balding. I guess that's not a disease, right? But how can we, through education, help the community know as much as possible to affect outcomes? Having the vendors here is part of the education process. These are organizations that support people with CF and their families. So learning and knowing as much about the services and products that are wrapped around and entwined with CF is really important. We maintain a website. We really try to maintain a website. We have a pretty cool website, actually, but it's probably not as nifty and changing every 24 hours like a lot of them. But it's got a lot of resource in it. And we try to keep that up to date and relevant for you. We get involved in other things as well. We partner quite a bit with the hospitals and clinics and are a sounding board for things they may be thinking about changing or adjusting, practical feedback from those who are nearby. We get involved, we try to get involved with transition points for people with CF. The day you're diagnosed is a pretty dark day for parents, but actually it's quite a bright light at the end of the tunnel once you learn more about CF and the trip and journey it's going to be like is not so bad. And how do you help people at that point? What about going to school for the first time, trying to develop 504 plans? Oh, geez, now it's a teenager. Holy moly, things change. Work, going to college maybe, those kinds of, transition to adulthood. And eventually it's having kids, and all that is a part of this. So we try to get involved with in what ways can we help with people with transition. We advocate, too. We're on the lookout for either laws or regulations, federal or state, that might help or hurt the CF community. And we've most recently met with the staff of, Shelley Pingree's group, for instance, or a number of our group were on a call with the Social Security Administration on SSDI definitions of disability related to CF, and they had it all wrong. And having a lay voice, not just with clinicians there, really makes a difference. So that's the kind of stuff we do, but we're just parents and adults with CF, just like you guys, trying to fit that in to our day jobs and managing this. So we meet once a month for about an hour and a half. I forget which, it's a Monday usually. We physically meet in Portland at the clinic that's down there, but people Skype and call in, and we need help. So if anybody is inspired to think about joining this effort, feel free to talk to any of us. And I'm going to ask the folks who are here, who are on the Family Advisory Board, just stand up for a second if you wouldn't mind. I'm one of them, so I'm standing. See these guys? Look around. These are the people you could talk to if you're just curious about it, want to find out a little bit more, or you want to give your contact info to. We chat with you on the phone and tell you about it. And don't worry, it just would be great to have some more help. A lot of hands makes for light work, so that's my spiel. I'm not a sales rep, but I could be. Next is, I think has this been rotating? Okay, great. Because the sponsors, this wouldn't happen without the sponsors. And these are the people along the walls here who have joined us and joined us at other times. The only way we can do this is to raise money to have the senator in here, to give you some food, to get Lighthouse to record this. By the way, this will be recorded and put on our website. There will be 30 DVDs that could be borrowed if you have other family members or people who would like to see this afterward, and I'll talk about live streaming in a second. But our sponsors are critical to making this happen. As I mentioned earlier, part of the education process, but also really fundamental in terms of making this happen. You know, getting Ronnie Sharp up here takes a flight, takes hotel rooms, some transportation, some meals, that kind of thing. So thank you all for being here and for your companies for supporting this effort. Two more quick comments and then we'll move on. We are trying for the first time to live stream. And the main motivation for that is that the risks for people with CF spending a bunch of time together we're more and more aware of the risks of people spending time together who have CF. And, you know, isolating, unfortunately, may lead to better outcomes, but it sucks for people with CF, particularly adults who might want to be here right now and hear what we're going to talk about. So we've been pretty passionate about trying to figure out a way to make that possible, and we're trying it this year. Now, there's going to be a live stream over here looking, I think it's happening already, and maybe you folks are out there and watching. That's fantastic. And we're really going to make an attempt over the next few years to make that very, very real and possible for people to audit and be part of this event without actually physically being in the room with us. So we're trying that for the first time. And I just want to say this, it's not so much for you guys in the room, but for them out there. We also, during this, the more general session part of this day, have an email address that I'm going to say a few times, because if you have a question or a comment during either Colby or Ronnie's talk, email this address and we will call that question or that comment out into the conversation. So hopefully this can be nearly two-way with our friends and colleagues who are watching a live stream. And that would be, here's the address, I'll say it a couple times, CORRIM@mmc.org. That's Mary Ellen Corrigan's email address. No privacy issues here. I'll say it again. C as in cat, ORRIM@mmc.org. I hope we got that out to the audience out there. I'm preaching to the choir, but great strides is right around the corner from most of the markets, and I'm sure you're all heavily involved, and I will just mainly say thank you for that. We all are too, and the essence of change that's happening in CF is really sourced in the funding that the CF Foundation gets and then applies, you know, in the science world. I was very lucky to go to the Salt Lake City National Conference of CF, where basically about 50 lay people are cruising around with 3,800 clinicians and scientists and researchers, and it was unbelievable what's going on. And a lot of it is coming, the genesis of a lot of it is coming from what CF Foundation is funding all over the place. So I couldn't be more optimistic that good things are in the pipeline there. But it comes from this grassroots stuff that we all do in our communities to raise money. So, you know, power to us. Let's make that happen over the spring and for the few who have fall walks. I'm going to turn it over to Anna Karns, who is a leader in our cystic fibrosis clinic here, and for many years, when we were first diagnosed, she gave us some of the best advice in the world, and I won't tell you all about that now, but it was huge for us and has helped us kind of get along. So, Anna, come on up.
Good morning. So this is very relaxing for me. You guys have organized all this. I just welcome to the Family Day today for 2014. This is astounding to me. that our family advisory group has pulled this all together, soup to nuts. Everything from location to food to speakers. It's really, really impressive. I think we should really get them a round of applause. And I have to say, our CF Family Advisory Board is really nationally recognized. The CF Foundation has made many comments about their organization, their vigor, their enthusiasm, their initiative. What they've managed to accomplish has really been astounding. This is not true across the country. This is quite unique. And I think in the last couple of years, it only just seems to be coming together more and more. And I think today is really kind of the pinnacle of that. Is just like just incredible to me that they pulled this all off. So please, we are very proud of them. You should be proud of them. I think they're a really positive, energetic, terrific group to be part of. So if you are not part of them, if there's any way you can call in, sign in, whatever way you can get to be part of that group, I think you will only get their positive energy, and I think it's really been an amazing thing to watch. And I also want to thank Mary Ellen Corrigan and Russ Correa for their work that they do with the Family Advisory Group. I think that's also been very helpful. I think I'm glad if this location has been helpful. This was one of the ideas from the family group that making this family day in the central part of the state rather than down in Portland might be able to draw a different group of people. So I hope it has and made it easier for people to commute. We know that our families come from a long way. I hope we've been able to get some families from the Bangor area and the Bangor Center because we're closer to them. We've invited them in the past, so I hope they've been able to attend. It is difficult. I know that our adult CF patients cannot be here, as Ted said, but I really commend the Family Advisory Group that they were able to pull together the live streaming. I think that's an amazing way to be able to bring this out to a bigger population. Yes. So I would, just to follow up, so from last year, I talked about quality improvement, talking specifically about pulmonary outcomes. We have been doing many different things to change and improve our pulmonary outcomes at Maine Medical Center. Pulmonary outcomes are difficult to improve. They take a couple of years often for things to come to fruition. We have been seeing slow, steady improvement, and I think many of you have been noticing some of the things that we've changed, such as more prolonged in-hospital stays, more aggressive focus on chest physical therapy, new modalities of chest physical therapy, are just, more aggressive, more prolonged use of antibiotic therapy, etc., all of which have been focused towards trying to improve pulmonary outcome. So we are moving forth with that. We are likely going to be working on a quality improvement project at the hospital, a fairly big one, we think, that will probably include cystic fibrosis. It's kind of in its infancy right now, and we think that will only make this process even better. So that's very exciting. And we would like to pull the CF Family Advisory Board into that more. I think to get them more incorporated in what we do in quality improvement would only be an advantage, because nobody knows how to improve the CF hospital experience like a CF parent. I mean, it's hard for us to know all the difficulties, but you guys know them firsthand. So I think your advice would be very helpful. So in that vein, Dr. Wyatt, so Colby Wyatt is going to talk to you today. And Dr. Wyatt, we're delighted to have him come. He came last summer along with Dr. Annie Coates. And Dr. Wyatt is from Burnham, Maine, the golf tee capital of the world, which I didn't know, apparently, something he's very proud of. Right. So he's delighted to be back in Maine. As Ted said, he started at Colby. He did an MD, PhD at Dartmouth, first in biochemistry and then completing his medical school degree. Then went to Cincinnati Children's Hospital to do pediatrics, and then went into pediatric pulmonary at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which is probably one of the best, if not, the top programs in the country for peds pulmonary. It's really a pretty amazing place. But one of the really interesting things about Cincinnati is that they, 10 years ago, were also not happy with their pulmonary outcomes and felt that they should try to improve them, and embarked on a 10-year sort of crusade to excellence to try to improve their outcomes. So he's kind of been around some of that, which is helpful, and some of it is published, and we've been looking at that too. But I think it's very useful to come from that environment, and I think a lot of what, in talking to him is really, it boils down to the basics of CF care, and I think that's why it's not rocket science. It's not that they're getting medicines that you're not. It's not that they're doing anything amazing that you guys are not doing. It's really pounding home the basics. So much as the new therapies are so exciting, and we all, couldn't be more excited to be part of research and part of these protocols, none of those therapies really work unless the basics are there, and the basics have got to be done very, very well. So I think Dr. Wyatt's going to talk about that today, so that's our lead-in, and I'm happy to welcome him. Thank you.
All right. I guess they can see me, right? All right, good. So I move around a bit when I talk, so if you can't hear me, shoot a hand up, and I'll speak louder or move towards a mic. If you have any questions, just yell out or shoot your hand up as well. I was pretty humbled when I was asked to give this talk, being the new practitioner in the group, or one of the new practitioners in the group. And originally I was asked to talk about some of the cutting edge science. And Anna and I talked about the experience at Cincinnati and where they found their improvement. And I think we as practitioners know a lot of this information we're giving you, but we don't tend to talk to you about it. And it may help you to have a foundation in why we recommend some of the basic care that we recommend. It's what affects your life every single day, multiple times a day. You know what it's like to live with it. We hear from you what it's like to live with it. But I'm hoping that you find this useful. This is a very difficult talk to put together. I'm not saying that for pity. I'm just saying that because I'm going to disappoint some people in the room. I'm not going to talk about some of the therapies that you're doing or that you're selling. No offense, but thank you for your support. I'm going to talk about some of the really basic care. And I do find this information useful, and I actually have to remind myself of it every now and then when I'm talking to families, that this is why I repeat myself. And those of you who have had me in clinic know I'm a bit long-winded. And those of you who are the nurses who are trying to kick me out of the room know I'm a bit long-winded as well. So I don't have any connection to any sort of industry or anything like that. Neither does anyone in my family, nor do our kids' college funds or anything like that. I like to just let you know that. So you all know this, but it's kind of a good idea to think about the perspective of what CF is and who it affects. And this helps you understand where some of the support comes from the research, or sometimes the lack of support for research, and why at a national level people have to fight hard for it. So Dr. Wood wrote this back in 1976. He was one of my mentors in Cincinnati, but it's the most common lethal inherited disease of Caucasians. Estimated incidence of 1 in 2,600 live births in the United States. So 1 in 20 U.S. Caucasians are carriers. You can see it does affect other groups. 1 in 17,000 African Americans, 1 in basically 100,000 Asian Americans. There are about 30,000 children in adults in the United States and 70,000 people worldwide. So it's one of the orphan diseases, or this class of orphan diseases. The gene was discovered in 1989. This is well after the disease was described. There are about 1,500 mutations, and about 87% of the people who have cystic fibrosis carry the delta F508. That little drawing there is a drawing of the CF transmembrane conductor. It's a chloride channel, and that's where the problem lies. By the way, I tried to put in here some details because I understand these slides will be available afterwards, some details of where I get the information in the pictures so you all can find it yourself and go through it. This CFTR info is a European site, and it's very fancy, like a lot of things European, but also very useful. I lived there for a while. They do have playing cards there. We just don't import them into this country. So the consequences of CF. What's the consequence of having an abnormal channel? Basically, all the secretions and all the tubes in your body get really thick and sticky, and that causes a problem. And it affects a lot of organ systems, and we may not mention these at every visit, but we certainly think about them with you and your children. So it affects your sinuses, it affects your lungs, it affects your digestive system on multiple levels, your liver because your biliary tract gets clogged, your pancreas, which is how the disease was first described pathologically, and that's why we will have some nutrition problems, and I'll talk about that in detail. And your intestines, if any of you have children who have meconium ileus, or the adults who are listening, if you have meconium ileus yourself, you're aware of that. And then the reproductive system, which we don't talk about enough in pediatrics, I think. Hopefully you've all heard the consequences, but it does affect your ability to reproduce. That being said, I've had male patients and female patients who've had babies, so it's possible. So why the digestive system? It's one of the earliest manifestations of cystic fibrosis. It's basically related to prenatal destruction of your pancreas. Those ducts get clogged, you get autodigestion of your pancreas, you can't secrete the enzymes that digest fat, that's why you take the enzymes. It presents as diarrhea, failure to thrive. That used to be the presenting symptoms of CF before we had the prenatals of the natal screening. Later manifestations are related to the increased caloric needs and the ineffectiveness of absorbing your calories. And then you have problems with liver disease from obstruction of the biliary ducts, and sometimes leading to liver failure. So what do we do? Neonatal screening, and this is the start of the data. Just a little bit about CF data. It's dry. Most basic science is dry. It's part of the reason I'm not sitting at a bench right now doing research and why I chose to pursue the clinical side after doing my PhD. People who do it are boring, but they get a kick out of boring stuff. So I simplified some of this, and I took some liberties with describing it, because some of the caveats that people get into in the papers are academic and maybe a little less practical. So, but this paper, Early Neonatal Screening, it's a study by Farrell et al. This was actually controversial at the time. They were talking about rolling this out nationally because it's somewhat expensive and it only affects a fraction of the people in the United States. They had 150 patients, 60 of these babies, we're talking, were identified with neonatal screening, and 62 were identified retrospectively. So they looked back at kids with CF and said, what do they look like? And they went through their data. This is the data on their weight, and this is where I step away from the mic, so if you can't hear me, let me know. And is there a way for them to let me know if they can't hear me too?
They should be able to hear you.
Okay, great. This is the data on their weight and their height over time. And so 60 of the patients were screened ahead of time, 62 controls, and you'll see here, actually it might be easier if I use my pointer here, because then the home folks can see it. So you'll see here, those that were screened early had a better weight at the start. And that was somewhat sustained as the people who were screened later were identified, they caught up in their weight. The interesting caveat to that is 17% of the people who were identified after the fact based on symptoms were pancreatic sufficient. So they're going to put on more weight anyways. I found this slide a little more interesting, and that's that those patients who were screened with neonatal screening had better height and sustained height. And the growth suppression from CF was sustained in patients who were identified after the fact. So the second set of data they looked at, and this one's a little easier to digest when they start moving the numbers around, is the proportion of patients with a weight height for age below the 10th percentile. So you can see in those patients that were screened, and it's flipped here, those patients that were pre-screened, there are fewer of them below the 10th percentile. And that's important because I'll show you a slide later on that the better weight you have, the better your pulmonary function is.